Good afternoon and welcome to the Lunchtime series with me, Kim Britz, leading the charge with insights, information, ultimately effective results in everything coaching, leadership, and marketing. Please remember to like and share our channel and help us grow even further. Joining us in today's marketing and leadership segment, marketing communications expert and co-host Craig Paisley.
Kevin, I'm good. Yeah, great to be chatting again today. Thank you. Hope you're well. I know you've had a bit of a torrid week, and did you get to enjoy some of the great sport last weekend, though?
I love watching the tennis. Well, I mean, I did watch rugby, but I did watch the tennis as well. It surprises me though that South Africa is just the best team. When it comes to rugby, it's almost like you anticipate somebody like either just not really giving you good competition or playing good rugby, but generally people losing. So it's, and some of the people were actually posting some of the trick shots that they were doing on the field. And if you see it in real time, if you go back and watch it, it's like the kind of rugby that no one's ever done. It's just, it's fascinating.
It is at an incredible sort of experimental phase. We are going to lose a few games before the year's through. That's a fact. I think the All Blacks are just going to come with everything they have. They're a phenomenal team. Yeah, so look, we got to experiment and play out our various options now in the early stages. But when we get into the Australia, New Zealand, Argentinian rounds of rugby, it's going to be a very different game plan. Argentina are on a rapid rise as well. One has to give them all the credit for really changing up their game. For me, the most exciting is going to be the outbound tour at the end of the year when we play the European teams. I'm very much in favor of that tour.
Yeah, and I think any team that comes out to play South Africa really has something to prove. So any of the rugby is really going to be spectacular. It's going to be,
yes, it is.
And if you could be in the stadium, it's going to be even better.
Yeah, even better. Yeah.
But yeah, and old Alcaraz lost to Sinner in the tennis. Also, just phenomenal. There were some of for kind of one of the tallest, luckiest players in Wimbledon. He ran around that court like he was 7. He had the ability and agility that you were like, how the hell is this man reaching the levels he is reaching? And there was a moment that you could actually switch over and see that Sinner his mindset changed and he was dominating Alcaraz. Alcaraz was just kind of trying to defend every shot. So it was really good tennis to see that in real time. You could see that shift in mentality.
Two names that are going to be around for a long time still.
And they're both 23, 24 years old.
Yeah, that's what I say. It's just phenomenal. Yeah.
And I was looking at, the winner of Wimbledon wins £3 million. £3 million. The winner of the men's final winner wins £3 million. So yeah, it's worth playing for, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, so as we kick off today's conversation, give us a brief overview of last week.
Kevin, thanks. Last week we started our focus on this month of 4 weeks of leadership and management topics, which runs through to the end of July. And we also continued with the theme of attention, but in that particular conversation, looking at it not from the marketing side, but then, from the leadership application. So I quickly want to reference a paragraph from the article titled "The Key to Effective Leadership, Mastering the Art of Attention" for the takeout from last week's conversation. As mentioned last week, I came across the article in corporateclassinc.com, and the opening paragraph notes the following. In today's fast-paced business world, leadership is more challenging than ever before. Business leaders are constantly juggling multiple tasks, facing complex decisions, and striving to steer their organizations towards success. In this dynamic landscape, effective leadership often hinges on a crucial yet often overlooked trait, that being attention. An important point to remember is that while attention is often confused as a basic cognitive function, and this is the important piece, it's actually a fundamental trait that influences a leader's ability to focus, to prioritize, and to make impactful decisions. And by mastering this art of attention, leaders can effectively guide their teams, make sound decisions, and inevitably achieve organizational goals, Kevin.
Yeah, it was a fascinating conversation, guys. If you want to check it out, go and check it out on the Lunchtime series. And nice to hear that we broke it down. The fact that attention, you can actually master attention, but it's going to take some work. But Craig, thanks for that. And if we move into what today's conversation, what do we have up for grabs today?
Yeah, Kevin, we're going to cover a really interesting topic that we've actually never even mentioned before. And this being the topic of fractional leadership. I came across the term in the article on fastcompany.com, the work-life category. The article is titled, "What is Fractional Leadership and Why is it Booming Now?" The article was written by Sarah Daw and was published as recently as the 11th of July this year. So a very current topic for our conversation today. But just to quickly provide some background on Sarah, Sarah Daw is the group CEO of the CFO Center and Liberty Group. Sarah Daw is also an author of Strategy and Leadership as a Service, and I really like that proposition, How the Access Economy Meets the C-Suite. Definitely going to go and look out for that book.
Yeah, fractional leader is something I haven't heard before. So can you provide us some more detailed definition of what that is, Craig?
Yeah, Kevin, we always start with Wiki and then move into the other deep sources. Wiki is telling us that fractional leadership is a distinct model that allows businesses to scale leadership resources efficiently. It can be useful in situations where companies need long-term strategy input, but definitely don't require daily hands-on executive involvement. They differ from business consultants and part-time workers because they and this is the differentiator here, they take an active leadership role or management role in the company that hires them. Wiki also provides a definition for fractional executives, which notes that fractional executives are professionals who offer their management services to organizations on a for-hire part-time basis, also known as fractional work. These executives typically have extensive experience in the business environments in these respective roles, such as chairperson, owner, CEO, even chief experience officer, Kevin, senior VP, vice president, or predominantly directors. The skills can be focused in on one discipline or they could be more broad-based, but that just depends on the experience that they're actually bringing into that particular short-term assignment.
Yeah, it's fascinating to hear it in this context. I know that I generally refer to it as consulting, but it says there's a term for it. Yeah.
But there's some other references that ChatGPT gave me, which will sort of help sort of augment it into its correct pillar. The first here is part-time or interim engagement. And yeah, fractional leaders are not full-time employees. They work a set number of hours per week or month or on a project basis, providing their specialist skills and expertise. There's also the definition of access to high-level expertise. Companies can leverage the skills of these seasoned executives who might otherwise be out of reach due to their cost or availability. So you can already start seeing the slight difference to the expectation of the definition of consultant. They also focus on specific goals, and yeah, fractional leaders often concentrate on specific projects, either specific challenges or very particular strategic objectives, often targeting solutions and guidance. They also bring flexibility and cost effectiveness. This model allows companies to scale their leadership resources as needed, so the flexibility to bring them in as the gaps appear in the leadership team, avoiding the expense of full-time salaries and benefits for a role that actually might not require full-time attention. It is not consulting or temporary. Fractional leadership differs from traditional consulting or temporary staffing. They take on a more embedded and accountable role, focusing on achieving results and often mentoring internal teams. So there's the clear differentiator. And in closing, two simple examples provided is that companies actually might hire a fractional CFO to help with financial planning during a period of rapid growth, or even when an M&A is being considered, or a fractional CMO to develop a really clever tactical new marketing strategy, Kevin.
Yeah, I think that the differentiator there is that, it's more embedded and accountable. Where, from a consulting perspective is you may put a strategy in place and you kind of go away. So I think that makes a clear differentiator.
Cool. So going back to the fastcompany.com article, it's important to understand why fractional leadership is booming at this particular point in time, Kevin. And one of the opening paragraphs of the article sets some context to that, and it notes that post-pandemic shifts have altered how senior leadership thinks about time, value, and work. Those three constructs. There's a profound shift in actually how we work, which allows senior leaders to reflect on their lives. And it's also encouraged more reflection, which gives rise to the desire to have more meaningful and purposeful work. All constructs that we've really seen come out in the various leadership conversations coming straight out of COVID, Kevin. And take note of this, it fosters a sense of agency to decide what work to do, when, and with whom. And I love that particular proposition. As leaders sought to regain more control over their working lives, many viewed fractional leadership as the logical next step to achieve the so-called freedom from and for their careers, Kevin.
Craig, so from what you've shared, fractional leaders had full-time roles, but now focus on short-term assignments to get the balance in their lives. And as you note, freedom in their careers, correct?
Yeah. So yeah, it's not just that particular article, Kevin, but a broad range of other articles that I came across that reference this aspect that fractional leaders work predominantly in part-time, high-impact roles across, take note, multiple companies at times actually, and operate on an access pay-as-you-go basis. They often work across a portfolio of companies. So yeah, I thought of what would that look like in South Africa? So I thought, okay, look at the Bidvest Group. They got this whole portfolio of companies all reporting into the holding entity, adjusting their support-based needs on each company's needs at a particular time as well. And the great thing about that is they then really get to understand the strategy of the whole organization and can often move fluidly from one company to the next as well. Importantly, though, fractional leaders hold the lead role across many functions, such as finance, marketing, or tech, and organizations often help them to grow the company during stages where, as I noted earlier, it doesn't require full-time resource in that particular area, Kevin. However, we can assume that most fractional leaders actually have held full-time C-suite roles, and I think it's important that they have. But they've transitioned into these fractional leadership roles while looking for that balance, for some of that autonomy, and for more purpose in their lives. So again, the word purpose really coming to the fore in the conversation.
Yeah, I think you earlier mentioned about the work-life balance, and I think
Yes.
more and more people are starting to realize that things can be a little bit less permanent. It's how do I find a bit of a flexibility in what I do, where I go, and how I show up, even in terms of remote work and in-person work. Um, People want more flexibility and choice. So it'd be interesting to follow this fractional approach to leadership and see how more this happens and how often this happens, because I think a lot of people don't want the full commitment to the degree of having it being full time, and rather would go, well, I'm here for 3 months and this is, I'm invested, and let me go away and then do something new, because it also serves for variety.
Yeah, and in fact, that is exactly because that's a perfect segue into the next point here, Kevin, where it really is about the aspect of variety that fractional work becomes more appealing as working with more of these businesses at different stages of their growth provides more of a challenge and excitement than sometimes these full-time roles do. And that really is very much the aspect that appeals to me. So to this extent, fractional leaders can have long-term careers in full-time C-suite roles, but it's fractional work that presents the opportunity to make a positive impact on growing a small to medium-sized business. So it's the different components of work. And again, if you look at a portfolio of businesses, that really is, I would think, probably the ultimate place to head into.
Yeah, and to a degree, yeah. I mean, I speak to old days, like when 20 years ago, people looked at your CV kind of going, why are you moving from one job to another? I think that whole perspective has changed significantly. And that if I look at all the jobs that I get to do, none of them, well, not many of them are not the same. And there's constantly something else showing up that's new and challenging. So yeah, it's interesting that they've even coined it as a phrase in this conversation. Going
Yeah,
back,
Kevin, you make a really interesting statement around the organizations are looking at leaders who have broad experience across multiple roles and multiple business types. Absolutely correct. Because what I'm seeing, there's another addition to that. In fact, I actually read about it last night, where the executive suite obviously needs to be AI ready and needs to understand how to apply AI strategy into the organizations. The key decision making factor for pointing them into these leadership roles is their strategic thinking ability.
yeah. So going from, I was looking at the other day, from all the implementation and design work that I've done for programs into environments, they range up to about 27 different programs that
Wow.
we've actually created and implemented in environments. And that's across the board, from call center service and sales all the way to specialist leadership programs, like the array of what it covers. And I think that's true, because although we sometimes generally work in a specific environment, that experience that we have supports the ability to help do what we do.
Yeah, absolutely.
But Craig, going back to the article, why is the fractional boom happening now?
Kevin, again, it's a couple of really good articles that I stuck my nose into to find out this particular proposition. But the one fact that stood out is that the world of business has changed significantly since the 1980s. Got the likes of global megatrends. These trends are clearly shaping the way work is done. Coming out of COVID-19 was an instantaneous change to that. Megatrends then emerging out of that. So fractional leadership coming out of that has allowed businesses to be a lot more agile, and this really is through the fact that they can access the skills that they need to address particular megatrends at a particular point in time as well, Kevin. There's some other drivers in that particular evolution and equation, in that most fractional leaders have access to a network of peers. A very important point, because we've spoken about networks this year already in one of the detailed conversation. And these peers can actually help inform decision making when responding to global challenges. So keeping that network of intelligence around you. We also note that full-time presence in an office isn't always necessary to perform valuable and important work. And again, that's part and parcel of this constantly and ever increasing conversation again of return to work. The modern workplace is demonstrating that presence does initially equate to impact. We've also seen the rise of independent contractor economy, where small businesses can actually leverage this model for services like design, marketing, and accounting. Just to add another point to that, I think the digital nomad is really playing perfectly into that particular proposition. Fractional leadership is the next evolution of that trend, Kevin, enabling business to access the right talent at the right time to support growth without the full overhead time hire, but through a committed relationship for as long as the business needs. And then this shift is really influenced by the advancements in technology, which enable unbundling of traditional job roles. You see this in the particular streams of leadership coaching that you deliver and organizational workplace sessions. And these organizations are adopting a lot more of an adaptive, problem-focused work model instead of this conventional job-centric work model. The closing question, or at least the closing point on the question, though, is that fractional leadership provides the opportunity to outsource these unbundled roles, providing businesses with access to dynamic, fit-for-purpose skill sets that allow senior leaders to integrate work with their personal lives.
But what are the benefits of fractional leadership? Because especially for employees, because this kind of puts leadership in a very different perspective.
Yeah, and I think it's also for me, I think, just as an immediate comment and thought to that question is, how does fractional leadership sort of delivery impact on the culture of the organization? And that plays into the employee proposition that you ask about here as well. So I want to do a little bit more of a deep dive into fractional leadership's impact on culture within that organization. But referencing another article titled, "What is Fractional Leadership and How Does It Impact Your Current Job?" I came across this particular article in Forbes.com leadership section, CHRO Network, and the article was written by Dr. Diane Hamilton, who's a regular Forbes.com contributor, and it was published also quite recently, 23 Feb this year. The article notes that there are definitely some upsides for employees, Kevin, who know how to take advantage of them. And that's three key upsides that we're going to unpack here. Upside one is listed as exposure to high level expertise, and I love this. Yeah, we note that fractional executives are often industry veterans with years of experience, and if your company brings one in, you could definitely learn from the top tier leaders right the way through into your organization, and these are leaders you might never have met in a well-entrenched traditional kind of business. The second upside is opportunity to step up. And here we note that with leadership gaps between the fractional executives' abilities, employees who show initiative can definitely take more responsibility, prove their value, and accelerate their career growth and trajectory through the organization. The third upside is listed as new career flexibility. And here we note that if companies are turning to fractional leadership, why not consider becoming a fractional professional yourself? Many mid-career professionals are actually realizing that they can work for multiple companies at once, set their own schedules, and earn just as much, if not more, than they would have in that traditional slow growth opportunity full-time role, Kevin.
I think the world, the more we figure it, and the thing about it is, Craig, it's to a degree, and I think for a person who's comfortable, who doesn't like variety or is lazy, this kind of thing will not work. But if you are someone who is very dedicated and very optimistic about the work that you do, I think this type of leadership position will work really, really well.
And you again, you make a really good point there because there are certain folk who just absolutely thrive in their personal world by just being in a jobbing kind of a role where it's systematic. You start at 8, leave at 5, have your hour lunch, and you just know how to move a product or a particular proposition through the organization in the day, in that timeline, in the way it needs to be done. And that is it. And that'll blow their hair back versus guys like yourself and I who, that'll bore the hell out of us, and we want to head out there after day one, to tell the truth.
Yeah, but I mean, Craig, there should be some downsides to fractional leadership as well. So tell us about that.
Yeah, absolutely, Kevin. Referencing the same Forbes.com article, there's some bold statements to this particular effect, and opening paragraph notes this. Not everything about fractional leadership is positive, especially if you thrive on that structure and stability, actually referencing the point we've just made. And it goes without saying that many leaders need structure and stability to be able to perform at their best. And again, it just re-emphasizes the point that it takes a very special, particular kind of leader to be able to step into this role, Kevin. As there were 3 upsides, the article references 3 downsides. First one is listed as lack of consistency. And if your company rotates fractional executives in and out, long-term strategy not might suffer, will, inevitably suffer. Employees can be left scrambling to adjust to the different leadership styles with each new arrival and intervention. And that is really problematic for the organization. Downside 2 is listed as fewer long-term promotions. And this was quite an interesting point, that sort of one of the aha moments in the article for me. So if a company can hire an experienced leader for just a few hours a week, it might also be less likely to invest in developing internal employees for leadership roles. Really something to be very, very aware of. And then the third downside that was listed is uncertain job security. And in this complex, really challenging work world we're in at the moment, this is a really big reality. Because as companies move towards more of the flexible contracts, traditional full-time jobs could be harder to find, particularly in some specific industries versus others. And employees who prefer stability or constant change, at least over constant change, will definitely be struggling with this kind of shift in the reality of the industry sector or the company they work with, Kevin.
Yeah, and I think this is definitely a personal perspective that needs to be had, because unless you're someone who can cope with that, the lack of consistency, and you don't mind that things are not consistent for you as the one being employed, and also the uncertainty factor, because it does have quite a lot of uncertainty. But to me, you got to weigh it up as options, and you kind of go, well, I would rather have short time invested time here where I have time to do other stuff versus just stuck in this one position. And I think that becomes a very personal then approach.
And I think that's why from my side, the final piece is the closing paragraph to the Forbes.com article, which really encapsulates it so perfectly in that light. It says that work is changing, and fractional leadership is one of the biggest shifts happening right now. Companies want expertise without long-term commitment, and that means leadership structures are evolving. Whether that creates challenges or opportunities depends on how prepared you are. If you understand how fractional leadership will impact your job, you can stay ahead of the curve. Take advantage of new ways to grow your career and avoid being caught off guard by the future of work. And the future of work is a key topic in your reality, so I thought that would be a perfect way to close up.
Absolutely. And that future of work comes with a set of skills. And, it ties into, this fractional leadership approach because, if you think of self-management and attention management, we covered last.
So that's lovely. So who's the author of that quote? Wow. Okay, I like that. Yes. Yeah, Kevin, you too. Have a good weekend in between.